Hello, warm greetings to you all. Welcome to the second episode of the interview with Professor N.K. Ambasht, the former chairman of National Institute of Open Schooling. Before we start our interview, let me read a few introductory sentences about him. Professor N.K. Ambasht, sir, is the head on the Department of School Education, NCERT, and he was the member secretary of Educational Research and Innovation Committee, NCERT, National Council of Educational Research and Training, and the head of the Department of Education of Groups with Special Needs, head of Department of Non-Formal and Alternative Schooling, and he was the chairman for National Institute of Open Schooling during 1999. He was the Professor Emeritus, International Institute of Adult Education, New Delhi. And Professor N.K. Ambasht rendered his services in various distinguished positions, such as member the Board of Management of IGNO, and a member expert group on elementary education, the Planning Commission, member expert group on secondary and higher education of the Planning Commission of India, and member expert group on value education and the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, and member of the World Bank's expert group to evaluate a district primary education program of Government of India for two times, and expert member for the UNESCO meet of the West African Education Ministers for Open Schooling, Dhaka, a member of the India's delegation on education in E9 countries held at Beijing, China. And he was the chairman of task force on curriculum framework on adult female literacy rapporteur. And he was sent as India's delegate on education in E9 countries. E9 countries means the E9 is a forum of 9 countries which was formed to achieve the goals of UNESCO's Education for All, EFA, Education for All initiative. The E stands for education, and the 9 represents the following 9 countries: Bangladesh, Brazil, China, Egypt, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Nigeria, and Pakistan. Representing over half of the world's population and 70% of the world's illiterate adults, E9 initiative was launched in 1993 at the EFA summit in New Delhi, India. E9 initiative has become a forum for the countries to discuss their experiences related to education, exchange best practices, and monitor EFA, Education for All related progress. The aim of the initiative is to accelerate the improvement and promotion of the Sustainable Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goal 4 agenda by driving rapid change in education systems in 3 of the 2020 Global Education Meeting priorities. Yeah. So support to teachers and investment in skills and the narrowing of the digital divide. So these are the priorities. But yeah, in this connection, we are having a distinguished Professor N.K. Ambasht with us, and now I I request him to share his experiences in school education. Professor Ambasht, good afternoon.
Yes, thank you. Actually, the perspective that you have set in is with regard to E9 countries, the 100% enrollment and retention of children in school. This is in context of Indian initiative of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. That is that was launched in late 90s, and to enroll and to retain children in the primary education, and which we have attained. I mean, if you say gross enrollment ratio, you'll find that we have exceeded the target. But the specific point in which I was involved was that during the beginning of the 21st century, the digitization and the electronic media had made its appearance. And so the specific country paper that I had to prepare for Beijing conference, mind you, there were other 3-4 other participants, but the country paper was prepared by me, in which I took a stock of how much of electronic media or the devices that we have can be used for universal elementary education. Now, when I say universal elementary education, I mean the children who should be in the school and who come to school from grades 1 to grade 8. At that time, India was in the stage of becoming or taking the digital media, adopting digital media. So it wasn't as developed as it is today. We are using digital media at this moment like this, but at that time, it was use of computer education. Computer education was coming into being. So I had to take a stock what is happening in the country and how it is being used in the elementary or primary sector. So there was an agency there is an agency now called Prayas. So they started with bringing slum children from in Bombay and exposing them to computers, hands-on computers. The children may be out of school children, maybe primary school children. So that was one experiment. The other experiment was on hole on the wall. There was in every street within a window, a computer would be fixed and children would be allowed to play. So that's the kind of initial. I'm talking about the year 2001, 2003. So at that time, this was the situation, and primary school children were being exposed to this kind of gadgets, electronic gadgets, so that it doesn't become a phobia. As you may be aware that during our childhood days, anything which was a little bit of technology involved, the parent would say, "Don't touch it; it will break." So this phobia, this psychology of touching anything, it might break or it might get out of order, was a great inhibiting factor. And when electronic media, computers came, people were afraid that if they touch it and if it goes out of order, then who will pay pay for its repair? The same feeling in 1974-75, when primary science kits were distributed to all primary schools in the country, persisted, and I had studied this problem, that even the primary school teacher was afraid not even to open the box. He was afraid that if a small thing breaks, who will pay for that? Whereas it was very clearly stated that there is nothing breakable in that, and if it is broken, it can be replaced from the local village market, because there wasn't anything to that could break. But the phobia was there, and the major failure of that program, primary science kits, during the mid-70s was this apprehension. So when computers were brought in, this was multiplied. This fear of breaking thing, or the fear of the gadget going out of order was there, and there was very great need for breaking this this psyche. And the paper that was presented in China largely dealt on the efforts as well as the efforts to break this kind of cycle, that there is something that can go wrong and you will have to pay for it. So this, it is another kind of education. Whereas you are asking the child to use the gadgets, but you are also, you have to have a mount of a kind of a people education program, that these gadgets cannot be, will not go out of order. They are user friendly. Do whatever you want to do with it, and don't be afraid. And nobody is going to ask you to replace it or to break it. So that is replace it or get it repaired. No, nobody is going to ask that. So this was at that time, with regard to your particular question. Of course, much water has flowed down the river. Now every child, I was just talking to a child who was only in nursery. He was using a mobile. And so this psyche has changed. And this is a great achievement, I would say, because since my early childhood, we were fed that if something breaks down, then who will be held responsible and who will replace it and how much cost will it take? So this happened in laboratories also. In small school laboratories, if you break a beaker, the teacher would say who would replace it, who would pay for it. So that kind of psyche was built in. And that had to be broken. It's a great thing. I mean, it may look very mundane, very small thing, but it was a great barrier in the use of technology. So I think I have answered your question with regard to this particular aspect. That
yes,
and that paper was, of course, when I was asked to read it, I mean to present it, and it was being translated in Chinese over the Chinese media. The delegation consisted of Education Minister Murli Manohar Joshi ji, the Education Secretary Mr. B.K. Chaturvedi, the Director of National Institute of Planning and Administration, Mr. B.K. Khandelwal, and myself. And since I had prepared the paper, so I was asked to make a presentation. And so that's it. Okay. No self bragging about what.
That was.
If I seem how I sounded, please excuse me for that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was a great honor for an anthropologist who is specialized in education, as an educational anthropologist, to be on the India's delegation, on the team of India's delegation. It's a great honor. And thank you for sharing your insight, how the mental constraints of the parents and of the authorities hinder the utilization of the electronic gadgets for the effective implementation of the government intended educational programs. So that was really wonderful. That's an excellent insight for which is really useful for applications, so that the project will run smoothly and effectively. Then my question is another question. What are the outcome-based education ways do you suggest based on your experience of working with the children and open schooling, the National Institute of Open Schooling?
Kindly repeat your question. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it well, please.
What are the outcome-based education ways do you suggest based on your experience in working with the children?
Right. Yeah. Outcome is always in any initiative that you take. The outcome determines the outcome is determined by the objective with which you start. Suppose you are going to the market to buy a dozen of bananas. So that is your outcome, that you are going to from here to marketplace and buying is the outcome. But supposing for a while that if you set their route in a different direction, not to the market, but to some my friend's house. So the objective and the route that you choose is not in consonance. Objective was to buy a banana, but you went to in a wrong direction to your friend's house. So similarly, the outcome of any educational program is determined by the curriculum. And curriculum is not syllabus, please. Many people think that curriculum is syllabus. No. Syllabus is only a small means of achieving the curricular objective. So curriculum includes the objective, what you want to achieve, the statement of that. And then how you want to achieve is the another aspect. So outcome will depend on what objectives have you set. Now, many people think that completion of the textbook and testing of the child based on the information. I'm not using word knowledge. Please understand that knowledge is much more comprehensive term than information. So what we are doing is that we are testing the child on the information that he might have retained in the process of education. So, why are we doing this? Because the measuring tool that we have, that is called examination, is not able to measure other aspects of personality change. The only information that the examination can test is your knowledge, which is equal to information, understanding, how much you can understand, and skill in terms of practical manipulation of your manual kind of. But this is not comprehensive. The comprehension is 3 more steps beyond that. Habit modification, attitude building, and values. But unfortunately, in the present day system of evaluation, which is a wrong word, not evaluation is not the, I would say, it doesn't express, it expresses much more than what we are doing. The examination, the present day of examination does not have any tool to measure the other aspect of habit, attitude, and values. So, curriculum, when we lay curriculum, it it is a comprehensive kind of thing. It's not only information, but also the modification, behavior modification. So our failing in the education system has been because we have been too knowledge centric in terms of memorization, rote memorization, reproduction and examination, and the achievement, which again is based only in one half of the total spectrum, and that becomes my yardstick. So the when we are transacting this curriculum, every teacher has to understand why is he teaching what he is teaching. I have written a small book on that, very small book for addressed to primary school teacher. So what is the ultimate goal of with which we are teaching this textbook? What do we want to achieve in terms of information and in terms of behavior modification? The child's behavior, child's thinking, value system, child's, how is it being modified? Because the lesson that was written was with the intent of modifying the behavior of the child. Unfortunately, then neither the teacher nor the book writer indicates as to why is he writing this lesson, and at the end of this lesson, what is expected to happen to the child in terms of his thinking process, in terms of his behavior, in terms of information. So I have been, I would say people don't like me because I argue on these points. And I had written some material where I said in 4 or 5 lines before each lesson, I wrote that this lesson is expected to achieve this behavior modification. So teacher knows why is he teaching what he is teaching. And in the margin, the change, the personality modification changes is indicated that if this paragraph is understood properly, this kind of attribute or values or behavior modification will happen. Should happen, not would have, should happen. So the teacher knows that, well, I am teaching this, and therefore I should expect that my children who have really understood the lesson or have grasped the lesson would modify their behavior. So, and at the end, the questions were again in terms of behavior modification rather than reproduction of the text. But this is a difficult exercise, and I still know that it is not being done, and it will perhaps because it is very difficult, because we have not ourselves gone through this kind of process. And my argument with the purist, those who are writing textbook, has always been this, that you must state, every textbook must change and state why is a particular lesson is being taught and what is expected outcome in terms of behavior modification. This has 2 major areas. One is the child knows that why this lesson has been included in my book. What is it? How I should assimilate it so that the message that is being given is reflected in my personality. I call it personality modification, behavior modification. Third thing, the teacher also knows that the intent of lesson is not giving information and reproduction of information, but the change in the behavior, attitude, thinking process of the learner. And therefore, evaluation has to be on those terms. but it is a difficult task because the system is such that we have been asked to memorize it, reproduce it, and then be with it. How many of us really remember what we had studied in our MA or what Emil Durkheim had said unless we are using it, right? So this is the kind of change that is required, and the world has not fully found answer to it, but many countries have tried to inbuild social service, secondment of the children, school children into various social programs, because if they are trying to modify the behavior of the child through lesson, then they put them in actual situation. So this is, but how many our primary schools sends our children for neighborhood cleaning or neighborhood experiences that are included in the text? But one point is I am very certain about it, that at least teacher must know why this lesson is being, it has been included. And what do we expect in terms of, not only in terms of reproduction of the content, but in terms of behavior modification. One small example, you have a story of Raja Harishchandra almost in every state of this country. At some point in primary stage, the Raja Harishchandra story. The story is, everybody knows it. I don't need to. But how many of the children who have read this story have started speaking truth or valuing truth as a value system of one's life? We haven't been able to examine it. We haven't been able to evaluate it. We haven't been able to grade it on a 100-point scale. So those things are not amenable to that kind of treatment. Last, I would like to say in this direction, this brings me to evaluation also. There is a story by Prem Chand, very famous story called Pariksha, I translated as examination. It so happened that the prime minister of a small state wanted to retire and go for Vanprasth into the jungles and meditate. So he told the king that I want to go, now I want to retire. And the king said, you find me another prime minister who is as good as you. So the prime minister announced throughout his small kingdom that we require a prime minister, and those who are willing to be considered are requested to come to such and such a school, and they will be accommodated here. And so quite a few, about 15, 20, 25 people came. Somebody was in suit and somebody was in pagdi and all kinds of. So they were accommodated in the school hostel and nothing happened. First day went, nothing happened. Second day went, nothing happened. Third day went. So the people who were just putting external, clean, fine shirt, tie, etc., after 3-4 days, they came to their normal way of living. So after about 10 days, some of them left. They thought that it is all humbug, but still there were some. After 10 days, it was declared that there would be a hockey match in the school ground. And the ground was a little away from the hostel. And in between there was a ditch kind of thing. It was a dry riverbed, and people had to walk through that and get to the field. After having played the match, one fellow got injured. And he was limping back while others were coming and frolicking and this. They saw a bullock cart which was stuck in the riverbed, dry riverbed, and all others were jovial, talking about how many goals I did, how I played. One fellow who was injured, he was walking, limping back. He offered to help the cart, bullock cart over. He said, "You pull, I will push it from behind, and you goad your bullocks." After 2 attempts, the cart came out up, and the next day, the Prime Minister selection was announced, and that man who was limping back was made Prime Minister. He was evaluated. His examination, I would say, was whether he is sympathetic or empathetic to the problems of the people, and whether he has that helping attitude. This kind of the title of this story is examination. Now, why I'm saying this, that this reflects the total goal of education, the behavior modification. We in psychology we say behavior modification. So education is a process of behavior modification in the context of the society in which one is living. This last sentence in the context is because I come from the discipline of anthropology, I have put this in the context of the society in which one is operating. It will be different in a Hausa society, it will be different in a Santal society, it will be different in a Rao society, it will be different in Toda society. Todas are matrilineal, right? The Garos are matrilineal. Todas are polyandrous. So the behavior is being determined within the parameters of the society. You cannot apply your value system. I cannot apply my value system on Toda. I cannot apply my value system on Garos or Khasis or Nokpant, where the matrilineal society is there. A male cannot own property there, which is the female, and it goes down there. So the conditioning clause that I added in my previous the behavior modification in the context of the social environment, societal environment in which it is operating. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, sir. Excellent. That's wonderful. Thank you for the wonderful stories that you have told, short stories, and the story of examination, and the reflection that education brings, so that people will how the attitudinal change, the formation of the positive attitudes, and the habits and behavior modification, the end task of education, that is really articulated very in a high level. Thank you, sir, so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, so another question is, what are the ways do you suggest for learning and study for children and students?
What is it?
What are the ways do you suggest for learning and study for children?
The best and the most permanent way is learning by doing, where you do you learn from your work experience. Experiencing there are two kinds of learning. One is the learning by imitation and learning by suggestion. These are the two major areas in psychology. Now, if you look at how any living being learns, whether he is a human being or whether he is in an animal kingdom, the natural style of learning is by process of imitation. You are from Andhra Pradesh.
Yes.
Your child, when it grows up, it learns Telugu.
Yes.
It doesn't learn English or Hindi or Sanskrit or Urdu. It learns because it hears and then comprehension comes, and as association with word and object happens. So for you, Tanni means water. Am I right? What do you call water?
Niru.
Niru. Now, this Niru, to your child, Niru is a vocabulary which is picked up from the very beginning by associative method. The method is that you say the Niru, and he sees that liquid, colorless liquid, he sees you drinking, and you give him up to drink and he drinks. So these are basic vocabularies of each society in which the child grows. And learning of the language of that particular society is by process of imitation. So the articulation, language learning, everything, this is the natural structure. So if you are trying to teach a child, then the best way is the example method. You set an example, he sees you behaving in that manner, and he learns it naturally. It is natural style. You don't have to make an effort. That is how a Telugu child picks up Telugu language, a Tamil child picks up Tamil, and a UP child picks up Hindi, Bhojpuri, and other kinds of dialect. These are the other process is by learning by suggestion, where you teach. Teaching comes when you start suggesting. So behavior modification or learning in terms of human behavior is best learned by the process of imitation. If you set an example, so take an example, if your child goes to a nursery or preschool, and there the preschool teacher is there, you just test it. Ask that a small toddler who had gone to primary school, say that your teacher has taught you wrong. Just say it and test. You'll find that the child revolts and says, see, teacher cannot be wrong. No, you are wrong, teacher is right. Why does it happen? The teacher is the role model. Teacher is the role model. If you ask let them play, and they give them a pen, a set of pen and paper, and see what do they do. They do something. If you have given him red pen, blue pen, so I experimented it in a school. My director in CRT said, your children learn this. Show me an experiment. So I said, okay, I'll give you I will make an experiment and come to you with the result. So I went to next day to Central School, Primary School, Kendriya Vidyalaya, in our campus, and requested the headmaster of that section that let me sit with the children in class 2 and don't ask your teacher to, let her also sit in the back and let me have one period. So I distributed them sheet of paper. I distributed them red pen and a black pen, and then asked them to write something and write whatever they want. So they made somebody wrote 1, 2, 3, somebody wrote ABCD, somebody wrote something, somebody wrote imaginative, and then they saw that there is a red pen, so they put tick mark on everything, awarded themselves 10 by 10, and put a signature. All things said and done, every child tried to imitate the signature of the class teacher. And that was the point of a study that I was making. Who is the role model? Who do they adore? They did not sign their name. They did not sign the headmaster's name. They signed as the primary school, as the class teacher was signing. Whatever way, they tried to imitate that. I brought this study back to NCRT, showed it to the director. I said that, look, this class teacher, every class teacher is the role model of the child. So if you want to make any change in the behavior, or you want to make child make the change in the teacher concerned. So teacher education must take care of that whosoever is being produced by their factory, I call it factory, they must come up to that standard that their behavior is worth imitation by the children. So this is, I think that is the kind of solution is there. Teacher education has become pivotal. Unfortunately, that is the being sold like anything. It's a very, very sad state. Most of the teacher education colleges are fake. They are just playing with the future of the. If teacher is not there, if his behavior is not worth being imitation, then you can say that all right, teachers were less paid, now they are better paid. So if they are better paid, then they should set an example so that they should be imitated. So this is, I don't know, I may have digressed from your question, but the learning style, coming back to learning style, particularly in the primary stage, it is by process of imitation. That is the most natural, innate learning quality of any living being. A dog learns to bark. A dog learns to run on 4 legs. They learn and be in the herd. The dog is also learning from their peer group, their species. That dog doesn't like start mewing like a cat, because in the same species they are imitating. They are trying to produce sound as their fox are doing. An orang while learns orang, he doesn't learn munda immediately. He learns orang first, because that is the kind of sound that is being produced, and that is the kind of meaning associated to that sound, cluster of sound. I don't start speaking French. So the innate natural style of learning is by process of imitation, and we must use this in a very, very, I would say, conscious effort should be made that this attribute of natural learning is is exploited to the maximum.
Yes, sir. That's wonderful. And you said experiential learning, learning by imitation, learning by suggestion, and learning by experience. Experiential learning means is it different from?
Yeah. Experiential learning is really the take example. There is a burning candle, and if you put your finger first and it gets burnt, and this is the experiential learning. Tomorrow, again, when you are near a candle, you will not put your hands near that. Why? Because the experience that you got gave you that stimulus response. So experiential learning is permanent. Permanent in the sense that you have learned a lesson for throughout your life. That so experiential learning is, although not everything you can learn from experience, but wherever possible, and it should be possible in great many situations, that children could be exposed to discover knowledge through experience. So I am using these words very consciously. Experiencing, discovering knowledge through experience. So this is one of the methods, or it is the most potent method of permanent learning to happen.
Sir, yes, you told that teachers as role models, and they should be trained, and they should be really set the stage for children for the imitation, and and also you made remarks that the present education system is grossly failed in producing that kind of the exemplary teachers. Is it right, sir?
What? I couldn't get you. You kindly speak a little louder.
The present educational system, there is troubling gaps where the teachers are expected to set the example for the children or students to imitate. So the training the teachers, the system is aching problems and troubling gaps. So that's why there is a different problems. So what do you say, sir?
Well, you see, as I said earlier, it is the teacher education that needs maximum, I would say, attention in terms of not only revisiting their curriculum, but also much intense effort in teacher behavior modification. Teacher has also, most of the teachers don't know. They know it is like a tail twisting the dog. The examination is determining what is to be taught, how is to be taught, and how will it be evaluated. So the curriculum, of which examination was a very small part, is being determined by the boards or by the types of question. So the aspect, as I said in very beginning, knowledge, understanding, skill. Only these three aspects are examinable, and these are being tested in examination by several boards. Habit, attitude, values, because these are not amenable to a one-point examination or one-point testing. This is a continuous process. And because the boards are not involved in the continuous process of evaluation, therefore these are at discount. The result is that these three are neglected throughout. So what happens is the teacher is more concerned and is more driven by the fact that his children should achieve 100% marks in the revision. So how to achieve 100% marks? Because if you have to memorize, you have to reproduce, the examination will come, expected questions are there, and 10 years question paper is there, and all kinds of things are there. So the behavioral part, the personality aspect is at a discount. So the evaluation system has to change if we want really a human being being produced out of our education system, a being who is a socially useful, productive citizen of the society. Then we have to have some kind of evaluation which really evaluates the quality of human being rather than learning. And in this digitized age, when you have Google with everything, you just ask Google and he will give the latest information which you reproduce in the examination. So to what use is CBSE or UP board examination is? What are you testing? You have a gadget, you have seen people making copying in mass scale and trying to, only day before yesterday, there was a chip in somebody's chappal, and through chip there was a ear plug in his ears, and he could get all the answers through somebody was dictating. And so if you don't take mobile, still he was able to answer. And Rajasthan, so many people have been caught. And who were those people? They were people who were aspiring to be teachers, who would be copied by millions of students, who would be the role model for the primary school children. These people are using this kind of device and this kind of. So what is this? Why, if you were testing these aspirants not on the basis of his information, but on the basis of application of information and behaviors, values, then perhaps you can say one must speak truth. But are you speaking truth is another matter. It's a very different matter. So evaluation needs a drastic change. If I were the one, I would have evaluation throughout the year. Observation and recording of the behavior of the child. I will not bother whether he knows how to calculate a percentage, because on the computer or on the mobile he can get percentage out. So this digital onslaught has also made expedient on us to think of ways and means of making change in our evaluation system, because you are no more dependent on your memory recall. You have the gadget with you, so you get all the information. What is the need of use your brain in a better way? So, I mean, these are the kind of dilemma that the present day education faces, and one must address it. One must address it. The implementation of national policy on education is in the process, and if it is not addressed at this time, I wonder, only God help us.
Yeah, sir. So you are clearly making a distinction, a difference. The present education system is information centric and knowledge-centric education. Rather, it is the values-centric education. So, which is
You see,
more important?
knowledge and information are not two interchangeable things. Information is something, knowledge, information is one, but knowledge is, if you take it in a comprehensive sense, then it becomes your personality. Knowledge must lead you to change in your value systems, in your values. So these are some of the factors, and each one, now that you have asked me this question, if I can dwell a little bit on values, if you permit me. Do you want me to talk about values, or are you going to put that question a little later?
I have one question, sir. Before we go to that question of values, what is your observation, or how do you find the difference between the information and knowledge and wisdom, what is data, from data to information, from information to knowledge, from knowledge to understanding, from understanding to wisdom? What are the subtle differences? I'm really curious to know.
Well, it is a very, I would say it is a little more philosophical differences are there. Knowledge is a very comprehensive term. If you want you see, there are in different cultures, different names have been given. I don't think the knowledge is the right term. Knowledge is all comprehensive, which leads to behavior modification. So if you know that Mahatma Gandhi was a practitioner of truth, so you know it. It is your knowledge, right? But if you also start doing, practicing the same truth as a value, then this is the real knowledge, not so inference. Sorry, Mahatma Gandhi life history we know, right? You say you know, but you are informed. His way of life, his practice, his values, his thought process. But if you are able to sift, S-I-F-T, sift, the attributes that you want to inculcate in yourself and practice it. So that is the total vidya. So every language has got a different kind of terminology. I think that knowledge and information are very near to each other. But if you really comprehend it, information must lead to an understanding the basics, then developing some kind of skill, practicing that information. Then that practice becomes a habit of yourself. Then it becomes an attitude building, a worldview that you think about that. And then you internalize it as your, then it becomes a total education. So education, you see, in some classic books you would say education and training. You train a horse, you train a, so education is different from training. And what we do in teacher training, what training are you doing? Teacher education, that is why it was changed to teacher education. But we have not changed the methodology, we have not changed, we have changed the nomenclature from teacher training to teacher education. So ultimately it is the quality of human life that you change. and set of desirable that you prize in your mind. I mean, desirable attributes that you prize. You say Gandhi was a very great man. Why do you say Gandhi was a very great man? Because in your mind it is that he stuck for truth and self-sacrifice. Now, truth and self-sacrifice, these are the that you value in your ideals. So the values that you prize or that you hold in high esteem are those that determine your behavior. You strive to live according to those values. Every time you are not always speaking a lie by habit. You speak a lie only when you consider that it is for your benefit. Otherwise, naturally, you speak the truth, right? If I ask for water, I am feeling for water. I will not say, no, I am taking juice, right? I could say, to impress on you, I could have said, I am taking mango juice. But I say, I am taking water. Why? Because naturally it is a truth. So innately, we don't, innately we are good. And when the self-interest and things like that come into play, and when you start reasoning, why should I do what I am doing and how beneficial it is to me, then the behavior changes. Sorry, I am becoming more philosophical and more. So I will stop here for your next question, if any.
I read somewhere that information and information gives us the organized data, and whereas the knowledge is informs us how to do, what to do, and the skill gives us how to do, whereas wisdom gives us how to solve the problems. So the application of knowledge to solve the problems to make a positive difference is the wisdom, whereas knowledge helps us to do what to do, and the skill informs us how to do. And these are the key insights I read somewhere. But sir, thank you for your valuable inputs in this connection. Being at the top position of in this being a chairman of the National Institute of Open Schooling, what are the policy facilitation? Is there any something whatever you are talking, and are you able to facilitate into a kind of policy or kind of any landmark or milestone in the Indian educational system? What are your experiences in that aspect, sir?
I will take this question in the later part of my presentation, but I thought I would share with you that I was the member secretary of a grant senate committee on value education, which was located in the planning commission. And I found that people used to organize seminars, etc., for which they would be given grant, and they would then submit a report that seminar has been done. So many people came, so many papers were read, and these are the papers. So I started wondering that what kind of this promotion by Government of India is there. And then I sort of started saying that no, this is seminar funding is not the purpose. Seminar funding, we have other sources. So we started the then Education Secretary, Mr. Cow. He was very much for making a drastic change. So committees were set up, resource centers were set up for school education, NCRT was set up. For technical education, it was in IIT Delhi. For management education, it was IIM Lucknow. And how to bring in values in educational system. That was the kind of, and a big committee of all Ramakrishna Mission and Islamics for institutions, educational institutions. And so the big committee was made and people started working on producing material for teachers, etc., etc. But as it happens in the government, Mr. Cow retired. I was also, after a couple of years, I also retired. So all those things went and they are now, which you say, junk, because they are not being used, so there is junk. It's in junk. So one thing I must say, that I was instrumental in drafting the parliamentary committee report on value education. I was asked to travel with them to different parts of the country with all those MPs of all parties. Parliamentary committee on education consisted, at that time, Mr. S.B. Chavan was chairman of that. And in ratio of their representation in Parliament House, both houses, the MPs from different parties were members of that. So they wanted that some academics should help them. So they asked the government, and it so happened that they named me. So I traveled with them and I wrote the draft for the committee on value education. I'm sharing it with you only because it is a very good example of how we try to nitpick. In that report, I had written that the ultimate goal of all education is realization of God. Behavior modification and realization of God. When the report was being discussed by the MPs, at that time I was not party because it was a parliamentary committee. The Communist Party member, who was a good friend of mine, he objected that no, I am communist, I cannot write a sign on any report which acknowledges God. So the God is not an acceptable terminology in this report. So Chavan said, okay, you are one-man committee, you change this. He phoned me in the night that I have been thinking about how to replace God. I am not able to replace God. So I am coming to your place and let us discuss. I said, you don't come to my place, I'll come to you. You are MP and you are a Communist Party member. And when you come to my place in NCRT campus, the tongues will start wagging that I am friendly with a Communist Party member. So I'll come to you. Next day I went there. We sat over this for about 2-3 hours, how to change this. And then finally I said, okay, if I say that the ultimate goal of education is self-actualization, how would you say? And he jumped from his chair and he said, God has gone and God is there. He said, God is gone and God is there, self-actualization. So that sentence was replaced. This is That report was accepted, placed in Parliament, it became a law. Because, when some papers are laid on the table of the Parliament, and then it becomes a law. So Aruna Rai and other many Communist Party people, they went to Supreme Court challenging that report, that it is Hinduization, it is saffronization. At that time, 5-judge bench, Constitution bench sat, and it endorsed every word of the report. And they said, the report is, that is a very precious judgment. And everyone said that, no, this is the true education. So values, coming back to that, human values, people have started saying, what are human values? So truth is a human value. Pity is another human value. Peace is another human value. Non-violence and peace, they can be done. So these are the 4 or 5 fundamental human values have been accepted, which are universal, which run across in any culture, any community. So if those 5 fundamental values are the common desideratum of the entire human society, whether it is Ram Khariya or whether it is American Lincolnian, truth is truth, peace is peace, living together is living together, and cooperation, etc. So some such aspects, broad aspects, could form the basis of education, and the objectives of curriculum should be laid down in these parameters. This is one, and the teacher being role model of all the students must imbibe these things and modify his or her own behavior then. So that is that. I wanted to intervene in between where before you said something. Would you kindly repeat your question now so that I can answer the rest one?
In fact, your Professor N. K. Ambasht, sir, in fact, your answer was part of that question only. It addressed the part of that question. That is a very landmark achievement for an educational anthropologist. Particularly ours is a pluralistic society. India is a pluralistic, multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic, multi-faith, and vast diversity. And in that context, living together peacefully, peaceful social coexistence is really a matter of concern. In that context, education has its troubling gaps. Parents are looking for grades, best grades and best jobs. Parents' expectation from the schools, for parents' expectation from their children, or to secure best grades and best jobs, and to create assets, and to live materially comfortable lives. But the troubling gap and the missing link in the education system is the human values or moral values or ethics. So that troubling gap is addressed by this parliamentary committee. That is a huge step in promoting towards the holistic education or comprehensive education. That is a wonderful thing to know. And being the person who drafted the total this report by traveling across the country and discussing with the different leaders of the different religions and different NGOs and all these things, having wide exposure and learning. So coming to a collective value system or universe, facilitating the list of the universal values which are agreeable from the point of Supreme Court. At the end of the day, the deciding factor, what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is false. So these are the matters of the concern
Well, as I said,
of the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court decided and accepted the draft prepared by your committee, parliamentary committee on human values. That is amazing. To bring unity in diversity, to bring the peace, to facilitate a peaceful social coexistence in the cultural pluralistic society. This is a landmark achievement and event took place. But my question is, what is the further implementation of that the law, and how far it got integrated into this NCERT or the school education curriculum, and what are that aspect I'm really curious to know, sir, from you.
Thank you. You see, I don't see any reference to that judgment in any of the documents on national policy on education or and mind you that judgment is a monumental judgment. Nobody can go out of that. But as I said earlier, if the curriculum framers, these various committees at different levels who frame curriculum, if they take cognizance of that judgment, that is known, that judgment is Aruna Rai versus Union of India, 2001. So Aruna Rai and others versus Union of India, 2001. That is a judgment. One can go on internet and get it. So I do not know whether those people who are involved in these things have gone through that judgment, have studied that or not. I am not, at the moment, I am not involved in that. So I don't know. But I have been always, to the point of being irritative to those who listen to me. I always ask them, before you do anything in terms of curriculum modification, why am I doing this? And why am I teaching what I am teaching? If that is clear to curriculum framer, that is clear to the teacher, that is clear. And when you ask this question, then certainly behavior modification and values inculcation and all those things will come. So this, at every point, keep reminding to the extent of being, to be called goading people. Anything that you write in the curriculum, anything you write in the curriculum framework, ask why this, why? And ultimately reduce it to terms of behavior modification. The modification here in the future society, their thought process. The behavior consists of action as well as guiding thought process. So that is that. Right, thank you. I think I have answered your question.
Yeah, and that is a very landmark judgment, and also the most important thing is publishing that judgment, and also the law which was facilitated. That how far that law implementation is taking place, that I'm really
well, I'm not very clear about the implementation stage. That is what I was trying to answer, that if these people who are writing the curriculum framework for different stages and in different areas, higher education, elementary education, and secondary education, vocational education, if they can refer back to that and find what are the established guideline in that judgment, then that may be a very good idea, way of translating that into action.
Because that is the need of because the country like us needs that kind of a crystal clear mandate for promoting the ethics and values. There is a good sign that the civil services examination, Indian civil service examination mains, the ethics and aptitude, the integrity, ethics and aptitude paper is included. That way, some remarkable progress is done, but not at the stage of the competitive examinations, but it should be at the stage of school education, and also the in that process of learning, through setting examples, the systematic exemplary school management, and teachers, and also the even security guard in the who works in the school, and also in collaboration with the parents, entire school system, creating a character kind of the positive atmosphere. That is the environment where the future generations, if they are nurtured, that will be wonderful. And in that process, this is the landmark achievement and incredible milestone in the history of Indian educational system. And I'm really curious to follow up on that work. And the other thing, coming to some students, they are very good at securing best grades, and they are successful in securing the jobs, and they are successful in creating the assets and settling in the abroad, or getting lots of money, and purchasing a lot of assets and all those things. But sad news, some sad news here and there I hear. They commit suicide, the families are broken up, divorce rate is increasing, and corruption in the workplace, and all those things are perpetuating. And what is the role of the universities and schools in preventing students' suicides, and also the corruption, and the promoting the welfare, means responsible and respectable and productive citizens? That is my question, sir.
Well, that's you see, it depends on what you say. Good. What is good? One, you say a good life, full of you studied, you got a good job, 5-figure salary, 6-figure salary, you have settled abroad, you have car, you may go have a aeroplane of your own, all kinds of things. So you will call it, these are the parameters on which you are measuring the quality of life or quality of human being. Vivekananda did not have anything. Gandhi did not have anything. Aurobindo did not have anything. Were they not a good man? Were they not a successful person? So what is the parameter against which you are measuring? If your parameter is the economic affluence, then certainly those people are the other side of the line, are most successful because they have earned more money, they have earned. But Vivekananda did not have money. Aurobindo did renounce all his this. So what is the yardstick against which you are measuring? The present day, most of us measure our success in terms of in terms of how much economic return do I bring to myself. So economic return in terms of money and education in terms of investment. If that is the kind of attitude, then certainly the values, etc., are thrown at a toss. So this is how, you see, you must have seen in most of the tribal societies, traditional tribal societies, money or economic affluence was not of that great consequence. A big, the panchayat head might have been a very poor person, but he wielded power, he wielded people who respected him and all those things. So if money, the amount of money that one has in bank and one is able to command, if that is the parameter, then perhaps we will have to rethink education. The education is much more your individual personality modification, and economic return was a byproduct of the entire. It was never a major. The aberration has come only because we have shifted the goalpost. The goalpost has been shifted in favor of how is it enabling, education is enabling to earn more money. Whereas the original goalpost was how good a human being you are.
So thank you, sir. Thank you. So I read somewhere about your report saying that that on-demand exam system. What does it mean, sir?
You see, I was moved when the final examination result of CBSE came. The spurt of suicide among the students was great. So I thought, it shook me from within. What are we doing? Is this examination is a suicide promoting kind of thing? So I started thinking over it and very purpose of examination. And I found that examination has a purpose. The purpose is to diagnose the inadequacies or what is my learning deficiencies and what are my strengths. So I made a parallel from your medical examination that you do. You go to a doctor, get yourself medically examined, and he says, all right, your sugar is less, so you take this. Or your sugar is high, your blood pressure is high, these are the medicines for that. You take medicine, go back again, and then he says, okay, all right, or you continue. Examination is not a stamping process. Examination is an evaluation process to tell you where you are in what subject. And therefore, who is the master? Who decides when I should take examination? Who decides when I should go to a doctor? It is me. So why should doctor tell me, or the board should tell me that on such and such date and such time, and you come to that place, and there I will examine you. And if you don't come, then you come next year. Who the hell is this? And therefore, I thought, why can't examination be parallel to medical checkup kind of thing? And I started working on that, and I came out with a solution that if there is no such compulsion as the time and date for examination, It is the learner who can decide, I want to take examination in English on such and such date, then it should be available to him. He can take examination by parts, he can take, it is because he is paying the money to the board. Board is not the master. The one who pays the money calls the tune. So who pays the piper calls the tune. This is the phrase. So why should they be so overbearing? So the problem, the logistical problem came. How can you have a different set of question paper because it will be out, leaked, and all that. So I thought of a method. I said, if we have, say, a set of 1,000 questions divided into various components, curricular components, like say in physics, heat, light, sound, and then conductivity, and these are the grids that I made. And in that, simple recall question, and deductive, where you have to draw inference. So this difficulty levels were. Then the third parameter was short answer question, tick mark question, long answer question. So it was like a Rubik's cube, where you can have all the kinds of permutations. So I got these questions and I got classified it there. And then I had a team to produce a software in which a set of, say, 100 questions or 50 questions, I took 50 questions can be taken out. And it turned out that if I have a bank of 1,000 questions, then I can produce a set of 50 questions, as many as 2 into 10 raised power 36. That is, after 2 you write 36 zeros. That many set can be done. And then I asked, worked out its permutation, combination, and other things, probability, etc., etc. The by probability, it appeared that in 50 question paper, questions, one can be repeated. One can be repeated in 1 in 2,000 questions, set of questions. So with this, I went there, and I had developed a program, of course, with the NIOS as chairman. I had that kind of infrastructure. So I've set these 5 at 5 places and let children come any day, any time, put their enrollment number and subject code, and question paper will come out. And he was required to answer it there and leave it there. That particular set of questions, the answer of that was generated in my computer at a secret place. And after 2 days, this compatible answer was released. One can check whether it is all right or not. So that was only one of the examination system. I wanted it to be at any place because tribal society was always at the back of my mind. So I thought if this can be possible at heart, the village heart, weekly heart, the child comes there, and while the mother is selling salt or buying salt, or the child can sit there and take the examination in some center that is there. The things did not work out that way, but they still have on-demand examination system where, because they do not have infrastructure in every village, the centers are assigned and the children come and they get examination, but everybody does not get individualized as a separate set. They are still working on that, and it is at high school level. But yes, it is no more it is no more that on set particular date and time only you will get examination. You can just say, I want to take examination, and within 10 days you will be, you can. So that is on-demand examination as it exists. But they are still working on it, the logistics of it. I had suggested them that the common service centers in each village where you go for Aadhaar card and other things, can they have that at that place to generate question paper, and people can, children can come and take the examination. But that is still in the process. I don't know whether they will do it or not. I'm out of that, having retired. So that is the situation, current situation.
That is a very interesting contribution, sir. That is a very practical suggestion to prevent student suicides, because students feel too much pressure and they don't expect.
One more thing was the freedoms to him given to the children, that they can take the same examination, same subject, as many times as they are satisfied. Supposing for a while that I'm taking physics, and in my first attempt I got 40%, but I'm not satisfied and I want to take it again. So best of my attempts would be given in this certificate. Similarly, if I get 98%, I want to have 100%. So I should have freedom to take it again, prepare again, take another set of examination. So that is the kind of flexibility that was built in.
So this all thought process generated in response to the massive incidents of student suicides after the result is declared by the boards. So in response to that, your thought process started and came up with this framework on demand exam.
Right. You're right. But at the back of time, there was always a tribal heart in the back of my mind, and I always tried to, which I have not successfully as yet, that take the examination to the door of the child any time that he wants. So if that is reached, I don't know whether we will reach or not, but if I were the one still running the system, I would have tried to make it available to every child at any day, any time, anywhere. Any day, any time, anywhere, any number of times. Until that boy is satisfied with his achievement.
Wow. That's very interesting, sir. The sole purpose is to prevent the life-threatening or the committing suicides, and give them the freedom and the accessibility to improve their educational acquisition, right? What do you say, sir?
Examination phobia is also there. If you remember, everybody is tense. The parent nowadays and the child itself is tense. Examination is coming. Everybody is tense. And parents are after the children. Why are you not studying? So these are the kinds of after our filter down effects of this present system. Examination should not be threatening situation. Examination should be that, well, I am going there, there is a weighing machine there, let me go and stand on this and see, oh, I am 89 kilo, I need to reduce it. So I walk off, and then after, depending on my determination, if I walk every day 5 kilometers and come back, and there is a machine, I just get on that. Okay, 80 kilometers. Wow, fine. I'll follow it. 80 kilos, sorry, 80 kilos. So I say, oh, I have reduced 9 kgs. Well, good. I took this. Same should be the situation with the examination. Examination is so threatening these days. everybody is so much threatened, and people go to the extent of committing suicides.
Being an anthropologist, particularly specialized in educational anthropologist, what are your observations regarding this? What are the social, cultural factors responsible for the students' suicides? The incidence of students' suicides are increasing year by year in the context of examinations, or when the failure to secure jobs and all these things. So, what are the social and cultural factors responsible for that kind of incidents of happening student suicides on the campuses, or in the house, or in the hostels? How do you see that? What are the
To my mind, it is the mounting social pressure on the child with respect to expectations in performance, and which is reflected in terms of percentage of marks. It is extreme these days. The parent of the child who scores 98% is not happy. He says, why have you not got 100%? The level of frustration of this child may be lesser than the level of frustration of a child who has got 78%. So how the child is able to bear this psychological pressure, expectations, performance, social and parental pressures, public ridicule, that, oh, Mr. XSR, see, 100% marks, photograph in a newspaper. And then comparison. Comparison starts. His son got this, my son got this. So these are the kinds of sociological factors that play greatly in terms. Some people are able to withstand, some people are unable to withstand this kind of trauma. So, and it is a serious question. I must say it is a very serious question. It's going to manifest in a much bigger way in the coming 10 years. You will find everybody would want 100%. Everybody, 99.9% fellow is frustrated. So, I am in the management committee of a couple of public schools. Everybody is 100%, 99% are there. Oh, no. 99%. See, that is school. They have 100% achievers. So this is the kind of rat race. And those are just try to analyze their personality. You will find that they are highly competitive, and competition leads to, it may lead to very negative factors also. Competition is not a very, I would say, cooperation is the best. Cooperation as contrasted with competition. These are cooperation and competitions are two I would say antithesis, if you allow me to say that, although it is debatable, but you see, extreme competition, lesser cooperation. You start keeping it to oh, I know this, if the other fellow knows, he will also score on this one, so I must keep it to myself. The cooperation, which was a human value, human society, the very basis of human society. If you look at the Neanderthal man and other, that they also lived in societies, they lived in close groups. And cooperation was the basic attribute. So, you see, Cooperation is basic human quality without which you cannot. If you I put a single person in, say, in a secluded place, the only sannyasis could do it. Otherwise, every society wants to live in cooperation. So here, what are we doing? The education is competition at the cost of cooperation. This is bad.
Wow, that is a very amazing observation. The competition and also extreme expectations from the parents and from the school teachers and the school managements from students to top in the marks and grades. So that is the only expectation they have from the children. But children are not able to expect parents to show them love and cooperation and understanding. So the missing human values are the factors responsible contributing to these incidents of suicides. Can we conclude that way, or
Yeah, I think no, the human values are deterrent towards human society because cooperation, living together, these are some of the basic fundamental human values. Adjustment, love, peace. These are the human values. So they are not competitive. They are not breakneck competitive. When you start competitive, you don't know whether you are running for something, or when you find that somebody else is going, so you try to pull him back so that you can go out. This factor, rivalry, when it enters into it, then it becomes a very dangerous thing.
wow. So it is breeding the rivalry and negative attitudes and non-cooperation in the to secure the top position in the competition. So what do you suggest? Survival of the fittest or survival of the what are the life skills that we need to impart in our educational curriculum? The competition says survival of the fittest, but the value education says how to make the students to become more cooperative and productive and respectful and responsible citizens, where they become highly content and peaceful humans. So what is the solution, sir, finally, to prevent student suicides and to prevent corruption in the workplace and to prevent crimes in the neighborhood and to promote development? What is the engine to development, and what are the means as an educator, anthropological insights and the anthropological education is so.
As you know, anthropology is a study of various cultures, different set of values, but they don't teach you to compete to the extent of making the other one extinct. So living together is basically the basic philosophy of anthropology, and survival of the fittest was a kind of when there was dearth or when there was I would say shortage of supply in terms of consumption. So the whole conflict started when there was less resources and more people. So that was a conflict situation, and you find that the tribal conflicts of intertribal conflicts there. But if you look also, the entire tribal society, whatever it is, they are built on cooperation. They are the roles and functions assigned to these two different members of the traditional panchayat and etc. etc. They were all geared towards the total good of the community, not of an individual. So community as a unit of existence or of living together was the basic ingredient of that. So competition, when it gets more individualized, then it becomes a little bit of a problem as we are having today. Competition between various communities, groups for development would be a good idea. But you have to be very cautious about it and very, I should say, very deliberate changes need to be made in the approach of cooperation. Cooperation is always better. Cooperation, living together is the basic need. And so I think
yes, sir.
there are certain things that which you don't have immediate answer with regard to the future. If you start looking at a broader perspective, present day's world, everything is not perfect today. There is need for doing more. And in this connection, I would, more deliberations are required.
That's very true. That's very true. I agree with you, sir. The final question. Only final question, sir. What are the viable ways you suggest for the assessment of values and aptitudes of students? If at all this the character education or value education is made the formalized, and what are the ways, viable ways you suggest for the assessment of the values and aptitudes of students?
You see, I think it should not be quantifiable in terms of percentage of marks, etc., etc. It has to be at best kind of a grading, like very good, good, something like that. I tried it in basic education, open basic education, to assess the personality aspect of the church children and incorporate it in their certificate. So some of the factors that I have taken, like cooperation, helping attitude, and so they fair, good, and normal. So it was not percentage wise, it was kind of classification. He is very good. He cooperates with others. He helps others. He respects elders. Yeah, on 3-point scale, it was given. So there is still need to be to work out it. The moment you start working on these kind of qualitative things, the traditionalist start saying grading in terms of 100-point scales, than 99% or 10% or 15% or 17%. These qualities are not that kind of, not prone to be quantified in terms of mathematical. So they have to be some kind of broad classification. And the teacher's observations, provided teacher is honest, provided teacher is objective, provided teacher is not non-corruptible, then these things happen. And therefore the teacher education, come back to that. The teacher education program is such that it makes really a good teacher. Not those fellows who have enrolled, and after paying 15,000 rupees, they get their B.Ed. This is I'm very sad. Whenever I think about it, I feel very, very sad about it. But, well, we have lived our life and we are in that phase of waning. So whatever we have, I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor N.K. Ambasht, sir, for your rich experimentation and the wise advices and the practical suggestions and the strategies to improve the present education system. In the National Education Policy, I read one statement that the goal of education is to character building. That sentence I have read. So that gives that the inclusion of these values education into the education policy. Maybe in the next episode, we will discuss about that, sir.
You still want to have 2.5 hours with me?
No, maybe in a small multiple doses we will go, because you are the authority, you have long-standing experience, you are in that education domain and the corridor where the policies are facilitated, where crucial things are discussed, and where the things are negotiated and where the things are facilitated. That kind of the attitude, experimentation and experience and all these things you have. So you are the source for us to explore and to dig deeper and to come up with some questions to learn from you and for the future generations as well. And this recording will be preserved so that in future generations, what are the thought processes emerged around the education and what are the anthropological perspectives and the contributions to make education holistic and more dependable and more productive. So these the deliberations will go a long way to have a positive impact in that policy direction and more productive in future. With that hope, we produce these videos with you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your valuable time, sir. Thank you so much.